Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Unwatched Pile. I'm Stephen Billings, and with me, as always, is Andrew Cabral. What's up, man?
What's up? What's up? I for some reason thought that this was episode number 13 and not number 12. I thought I was gonna make a nice like Friday the 13th like bad luck joke, but I guess I'll save it for next time.
It's
I'll
also
save it for
never
next time.
Friday when we do this show.
That's
So,
very true. We know what I mean. The whole bad luck of the number 13, how it's
sure,
so unlucky and all that junk.
of course.
Superstition.
I get it. What's up, guys? What's up, Willie? Movie and music doing, or Wilkie's movie and music. How you doing? Of course, we got Josephine here. Thanks for always, Josephine. Happy Earth Day.
It is indeed Earth Day.
It is Earth Day. Yes. Let's see, Dan, in honor of Earth Day, favorite movie. We'll get to that. Dan's not on yet. But before we bring Dan on, of course, Dan Skipallen, friend, film critic, is going to be on tonight with us. But before we get into it, how's it been going?
It's been going okay since the last time we were live, which was last Monday?
Last Monday on Chasing Labels.
We did Chasing Labels live. Goes by pretty darn quick. Interesting day today, Steve. A lot of big celebrity birthdays today. I didn't know that until I went out to social media this afternoon when I woke up.
Yeah.
The legendary, my favorite, John Waters, his birthday today. Jack Nicholson's birthday today as well.
Nice.
Very
he
cool.
turned 87. 87.
Yeah. You see him once in a while now. He shows up to the Lakers games. That's the extent we see Jack Nicholson these days. He's living his retired life.
Or on his balcony, just
hanging out.
Sweatpants.
Just hanging out. Might as well.
Yeah, that's what I'd be doing. But
living the dream.
Yeah, living the dream, man. But yeah, so this is not movie related, but one of my favorite bands, more maybe not all time, but like bands that when I was in my youth that I really loved, and then they like broke up, is now coming back together to do a new album. They're called Jet. Remember Jet?
Oh my goodness, yes.
Yeah.
I didn't know they broke up.
Damn, they broke up after 3 albums. If nobody knows the band Jet, they do that song that everybody knows, Are You Gonna Be My Girl?
Yeah, I was just that song is playing in my head right now, Steven.
Yeah.
Because it's still a regular rotation in my Spotify listening.
Well, cool. Well, they broke up after 3 albums, and so it's been about 15 years since the last album, and they've been doing a little bit of touring back together, but now they've just announced they're going to do a new album. So me and my friend Daniel, who I was in a band with in my 20s, we both love that band. We went and saw them when we were 18, got pictures with them, got their autographs, got T-shirts, so yeah, we're super pumped. But when I was going through my memorabilia of that time, I also found something else that was pretty cool. I found a ticket stub to There Will Be Blood.
Oh, what was that? 06, 07?
08.
Oh, 08.
Beginning of the year of 08, January 27th, 08, on a Sunday. And I remember that I watched this also the same day with Blood Diamond.
Oh, nice.
It was a double feature of Blood Diamond and There Will Be Blood.
That's a heavy double feature.
Yeah.
That's heavy double feature.
I wore my There Will Be Blood shirt tonight in honor of finding that ticket. I'll drink your milkshake.
Do you keep your ticket stubs from like all time, or do you just keep? Yeah, I've got some going back all the way to 1999. Yeah, that's how far back I go.
Yeah, I mean, when I was younger, I didn't really keep up with it, but like as I got older, it became a thing. And of course, now it's like barely can get to the theater, so I barely collected stubs. And you order on your phone half the time, so it's like
that's also very true. I still keep mine. I have them in like bags and stuff. You can get like photo albums and some type of albums to put them in.
That's what I did. That's what I got.
I never really did that. I should have done that because they fade after time. That ink fades. That ink fades.
I got some good ones in there. But
yeah, I know what my first one is. I saw Castaway at like a second run theater back in '99, like the $7 theater or whatever it was. The budget theater at the time. I saw Castaway. I have like Tomb Raider from like 2001, which I went to see on my birthday. Just tons of stuff.
Nice, man. Well, enough of that chat-chitting. Let's bring our guest in, of course, Mr. Dan Skipallen, film critic, Florida, just coming back from the Florida Film Festival. Here he is. What's up, man?
Hey, nothing much, man. I'm glad to be here. when you asked me to come on, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be exhausted on that day.
Yeah, I was going to say, he was like, I got one day, and it's the day of that Monday, and I'm all the rest of the days I'm in a film festival, before. So, yeah.
And
I've seen the pictures. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I want people to see the coverage and the people that I met. I met a lot of filmmakers, met some actresses, met Patrick Fabian from Better Call Saul. He was super, super nice. What a nice guy he was. His film wasn't the best, but he was just like Howard from Better Call Saul in the film, though.
I saw that picture. He looked exactly the same. I mean, the show just wrapped up like a year ago, 2 years ago.
Now, in honor of Patrick Fabian, I probably have to go back and finish Better Call Saul because I kind of stopped at season 3. So,
no, I mean, you got a lot of movies to watch.
The irony is that his best work in that show was later on in the show. His best work.
people were refraining from spoiling it for me because I didn't see. I guess something happens to
That's
Howard.
very nice of him.
Yeah, I gathered something happens to Howard at the end there. So I haven't seen it. I'm going to go back and watch it. But he was super nice. I met some really nice filmmakers. Saw a lot of close to about 20 to 21 films over the film festival. And that was only one of the 2 film festivals I covered.
Nice.
I covered 2 film festivals, one virtually and one in person.
Yeah. You keep Dan. Yeah, every time I talk to Dan, he's got like 4 or 5 more movies he needs to tell me about. I'm like, Dan, I don't know when I'll get to these, but
not only that, but they usually don't come out for like a month. They usually don't come out for a long time. Yeah. As it is, catching up on stuff from 2024 right now. So yeah, there's too much that comes out like very quickly, and it's like the mainstream stuff, the indie stuff. Yeah. If you don't have an indie theater, or if your theaters aren't showing the indie stuff, you got to wait until it comes out on, rentable video on demand or streaming or whatever. But the year is full on upon us when it comes to movies. Well, we're almost in the summer season.
Well, I'll tell you, I know we're here to do the Unwatched Pile, but I will tell you this. I cannot recommend Tuesday and Ezra. Those are the 2 that I came away for of the 20 to 21 films I saw that I loved the most. And they're both coming out in the next month or 2. So stay tuned for Ezra and Tuesday. Ezra's Bleecker Street, Tuesday's A24.
All right. Them are 2 companies. Yeah, there are 2 companies there that are, of course, got a good reputation. So, but as you said, Dan, we are here for the Unwatched Pile.
We are indeed.
And as we always do, if you've never seen the show, listen to the show, we all pick first-time watches from our physical media collections, because as physical media collectors, we sometimes blind buy, or sometimes we get something that's part of a box set, and we're like, oh, we'll get to that eventually, and it just sits on the shelf, and it sits on the shelf. And now this show, you come on this show, you're knocking that off the list. So we all come in with something in our physical media collections that we have not watched, and then after we watch it, we get inspired, and we say, hey, that's kind of like this other movie that I have in my collection that we have seen. And then we discuss these films, and we have fun. And as always, we start with our guest, Dan. Please tell us your first time watch.
Well, real quick, years and years ago, Steven and I, we have a semi-weekly conversation, a phone conversation. Oh God, yes, we talk on the phone weekly. And he got me into buying, because he was telling me, and he got it from Andrew. Andrew, the 2 of them were kind of doing it. And they kind of got me in on the ground floor of collecting Criterion collections about 10 years ago. And these guys had some in their collection by then. So
Andrew had a lot more. Yeah.
I've kind of followed suit with these guys, and I started buying Criterions. And there's a lot of them that I have not watched. I bought them because it had this actor, it was directed by this person, it's world renowned or whatever. And one of those films I finally caught up with that I hadn't watched all these years. It's a director that I just wish I had. I watched a few of his films, but I'm kind of behind on this director. And I was like, well, I know one I really want to watch. When I was offered to come back on, one I got to watch. It's one of those ones if you haven't watched it, you got to. It's considered one of the greatest films of all time. And it is called High and Low by Akira Kurosawa. And Akira Kurosawa has directed films like Seven Samurai, Ron, and so many others. He's considered one of the greatest directors of all time. High and Low is about a executive at a shoe company, and he tries to set up this deal where he's going to take over the shoe company. But in the midst of this, he thinks somebody has kidnapped his son. And in reality, it turns out to be a friend of his son. And they want 30 million yen. And so the whole movie is detectives, him, the families, all these people trying to figure out how to get the kid back, pay the ransom, capture the guy that did it, and so on and so on. It's a black and white film. It came out in the 60s, and it's a beautifully filmed film. I guess I should know the actors and stuff in it, but like an idiot, I didn't look up the actors.
Toshiro Mifune plays the lead character.
Oh, is that him? Okay.
He was in Seven Samurai. He was one of the
Okay. He's like one of the main guys that Akira Kurosawa works with all the time. And
along with the detective Tatsu Nakade
and he's really good in the movie. And it's just I love the 60s aesthetic. If you're a fan of Mad Men, you're gonna love High and Low because it has a similar aesthetic to Mad Men, the way the people dress and the clothes and the business kind of attire and stuff like that. Because he does a lot of samurai movies, Kurosawa does. But this is a straightforward kind of movie with straightforward kind of characters with a scenario that happens that could happen to anybody. This scenario can happen to anybody in any town, in any state, in any country in the whole world, really. And so it was very it really can resonate with anybody, really. You might know somebody that might be in this sort of situation.
Well, I mean, I guess people that have money. Because I mean, he's rich, and what happens is a little bit more specific. It's his driver. It's his
driver. Okay.
Is it his driver whose son is taken? So it's somebody who works for him, son who's taken, and so now he's in this moral quandary whether to pay the ransom to get his, not his friend, but somebody that works for him.
I forgot.
It changes the dynamic a bit.
Changes the dynamic. So he doesn't. It's not so much an obligation because he doesn't feel so close to this person that he can't say no. But also morally, it's like he has the money, he can do it. But then it fucks up his deal, to get the shoe company. So it's an amazing movie. I love the movie.
And I feel like watching it for the first time, I probably didn't see a lot of the things I probably would have seen if I've watched it multiple times, but I probably will definitely go back and watch it again and see more of the layers and the depth in the movie. But watching it for the first time, I did like it a lot. I just didn't find myself like, oh my God, this is one of the greatest films ever,
It's a little length. It's also a little lengthy.
Long.
And also, let me ask you, because I mean, one thing that's really cool about the movie is how one half the movie is this kind of, cat and mousey kind of like, how are we going to get this ransom done? Then the second half turns into procedural cop drama where they're like trying to track them down. What did you think about that drastic kind of change in the narrative?
I actually like the second half better because the first half was more like a play where they were all in this one room.
They're all in one room.
And having this discussion, this back and forth, and characters leave and come and go, and all this kind of stuff. And then the second half is more, like you said, a cop drama. And I did like the second half better. I found myself liking the police characters a little bit better than the main guy, But it wasn't like I didn't want to like the main guy. It took me a while to like him. Let's put it that way. I like to hear from anybody that does end up watching this movie. If you find you don't like him at first, but then eventually you come around to him. I think he as a character, he comes around in the script and in the story. I felt towards the middle and towards the end, near the closer. Do you agree, guys, on that?
Well,
No?
Andrea, I think you can agree with me. I think you feel empathy for him because the thing about Toshiro Mifune's characters is he's like working class. He's trying to work his way up to buy this shoe company. So he's not necessarily like just straight up spoon fed, like rich from the beginning.
No.
He worked hard to get to where he is, and he's trying to better his family by buying this company. But this moral problem happens. And so I don't think there's ever really a point where I don't not empathize with the main character. He doesn't come off as in a negative way. It's just a really tough situation, like
there are moments where he wavers back and forth on what he's going to do. There are moments where he is staunchly against paying this ransom and then has to be swayed to do so. And has to be swayed to do so, for various, personal reasons as we've aligned. And what is interesting, the way the movie is structured, is the fact that it is a movie of two halves. It's kind of Law and Order before Law and Order. You know what I mean? Or whatever those procedural shows where you would see, the criminal investigation, then you would see the legal proceedings resulting of so. You know what I mean? In this way, it's not quite like that, but you understand what I'm saying. The idea of like the duality of the situation. You kind of see this thing go from beginning to end in two different hands, in two different tones. Really, the second half is so different. It's almost its own movie.
Yeah.
Where what is interesting is we, as the audience members of the film, kind of see the perpetrator of said act, of the extortion, and we're watching the people try to track him down, and it's like we know where he is, they don't know where he is.
Yeah.
It's an old Hitchcock trick where usually in Hitchcock we would see the murders happen, and then it would be the other people in the movie being completely oblivious to who did it, how they did it, where they did it. It's kind of like remember the movie Rope? I'm thinking of Hitchcock, the movie Rope. That movie, no spoiler, opens with a murder, and the whole time everyone's oblivious to it. It's the perpetrators
subverting. It's about subverting perspective,
and that heightens tension. That heightens our participation as audience members, as people watching the movie. We did a whole breakdown of that movie for Cinema Discovery Project.
High and Low. We did do a whole episode. Yes.
Yeah.
So
we just go beat by beat.
Yeah, we can go. You can go back into archives on the audio feed and find me and Andrew talk about High and Low.
Yes, because it was a movie that I had seen many years ago, and then Steven saw it and was like, we were choosing movies randomly. We just went with High and Low. Because when it comes to Kurosawa, I've said this, forever. Everyone goes to Seven Samurai first, which is a gigantic.
It's a perfect movie. I love it.
Gigantic weight of a film to digest. It really is. High and Low is so different because it's not a samurai film. It's a drama. It's like a family drama at times, and we're kind of thrust into a crime drama, family drama, all rolled into one. It's nice to see Toshiro Mifune in a modern setting, not being in like feudal Japan. That's always kind of nice. Again, he and Kurosawa worked with each other so many times. I did a whole I would say episode, but I did a whole video here on the channel when Toshiro Mifune like turned 100 a couple of years ago. Obviously, he wasn't alive. It was just the anniversary of his 100th birthday, I think. I did a whole video on him and all the stuff I had in my collection from him. And it was mostly just Kurosawa films. That was basically it. But yeah, great film. It's on so many like best of all time lists for a reason.
Yeah. Most definitely. All right. Anything else, Dan, before we move on?
Yeah, I wanted to watch some more Kurosawa, and I was glad I had this opportunity to, you guys gave me the opportunity to watch something I hadn't watched. I was like, if I had that opportunity, I'm going to watch High and Low because I know it's like one of those greats of all time. I had to watch it. And I feel like the aesthetic and the cinematography were really, really good of it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's one of them movies where it's like, it's actually black and white. It's not like really gray. It's like,
we did see a little color one time.
Well, yeah. But for the most part, especially the first half, like it's very just the cinematography is very white and black. So yeah, good choice. I love that movie. Andrew,
yes,
your turn, sir. Please tell us your first time watch.
Okay. Coincidentally, I guess this goes with a recent video we did here on Chasing Labels when we interviewed the person responsible for this Blu-ray release.
Oh,
This is the movie Visible Secret from Radiance Films. Of course, we had Fran Simeone on here for a second time recently to do an interview to see what was going on over at Radiance. A lot of things going on there. As of right now, they're already talking about what July releases going into this year, through this year, and this was one from actually last October. Appropriately so, such an October release. I think it was this and like Messiah of Evil and then like Doctor Hitchcock. Those were all around that time, and they were all horror-based movies. And this is a horror-based movie. So this is a movie from 2001, a Chinese movie. Yeah, because it's in Cantonese. It's directed by An Hui, and Anne Hui was a director I hadn't been too aware of, but she directed the movie that actually got a Criterion release 2 years ago, and that's a movie called The Boat People, which I think we talked about here on Chasing Labels when it was announced once upon a time. And that was a movie from 1982, I believe. And this is a movie pretty much 20 years after that. Yeah, Boat People from 1982, and completely different movies. Just if you would have told me that that director directed this, I wouldn't have believed it until I looked it up because it's so different. This film is, like I said, a horror film, but it's a horror comedy, drama, romance. It's a bit of a jack of all trade type of film, and it's done in such an early 2000s stylization that feels like J horror or Japanese horror, but obviously it's a Chinese film, not a Japanese film. But it has that sense of aesthetic. It has that sense of atmosphere. I'm thinking of like Ringu. I'm thinking of Ju-on. I'm thinking of those films, and other films of that time. And so the premise of this film is that this man whose name is, I just had it, and of course I clicked off of it like an unprepared person. Peter, yeah, his name is Peter Wong Choi, and he meets a woman in a nightclub some random night. Her name is June, or I think Shui Kim, or it's one of the two. She goes by like two different names, and they just randomly meet in a nightclub while dancing. She like is in the middle of a breakup with another guy, and then she just attaches herself to him to try to get away from this other guy, and then they strike up this kind of a whirlwind romance. But what ends up happening, Stephen? This is why I don't like to meet strangers.
Okay.
He has this ability to see ghosts.
Ah, son of a bitch.
It happens. It happens.
I hate
you know.
that shit.
And what happens is this ability to perceive ghosts kind of starts rubbing off on him.
This is what happened to Haley Joel Osment's character from Sixth Sense. As he grew up, he's like, shit, I can't date.
This movie has a lot of Sixth Sense vibes to it. A lot of Sixth Sense vibes to it, and I knew it came out after Sixth Sense, because since Sixth Sense was what, 99, I think.
Yes.
Yep, 99, that great year.
Yeah, and so this came out after that. Whether that influenced this or not quite sure, because it's got that same type of thing. But there have been movies in the past where people have seen the deceased, have seen ghosts, have seen the other side, or have seen other worlds. You know what I mean? Like there have been other movies like that. So Sixth Sense is the one everybody goes to because it's the most pop culture relevant or quoted movie when it comes to that stuff. But so the way this movie works is that it's a slow process of him like beginning to see ghosts and to see not so much spirits, but what is interesting is sometimes they manifest themselves in a corporeal form, as in like a body in front of him. Like he sees a deceased family member that he's able to talk to. But most of the time, it's kind of an angry spirit that possesses someone. Kind of a la Evil Dead, if you will. You remember Evil Dead, where the Deadites would possess someone and they would kind of start acting crazy. Their voice would change, their eyes would change. Those instances happen in this film, and then as well as just kind of regular, like almost dream-like sequences of seeing a ghost. And the further that he is in this relationship with this woman, the further along he gets kind of drawn deeper and deeper into into this. And now there's a whole plot line structured around this that I don't want to get into because it's kind of spoilerific. And needless to say, this woman, there's a reason why this woman is able to perceive ghosts. A lot of it is born out of a traumatic event, a lot which you get into in the film, and then that kind of traumatic event may or may not be connected to this guy that she has now met. I'm being very cagey about that for obvious reasons. And so there's a whole plot line kind of around there that he starts to be able to connect certain pieces as to what is going on. But like you said, as he goes further and further into it, he kind of starts, kind of losing his mind, kind of not being able to perceive what is real and what is not. That's when the stylization of the film takes over and all the kind of cool effects going on. Kind of the effects are somewhat dated because it's 2001. It's not quite like today, so you kind of have to forgive the film for that. What it lacks for in kind of modern CGI, it makes up for in atmosphere and acting. I thought it was really, really good film, but it's trying to do a lot of things. Like I said, it's trying to be a bunch of different genres in one, and sometimes it succeeds and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes trying to tell too much of a story. The movie only clocks in at 103 minutes, so an hour and 40 minutes or so, and it's trying to do a lot of plot twists and turns, third act twists, things like that. But I thought it was very good. It made me want to watch more of this director's work, if anything. And Hui, she actually did a 14-minute interview in here, which is brand new from last year, which I thought was really nice. There is also a 14-minute video essay by Alexandra Heller-Nicholas, which we've had here as a guest on the podcast. And then there is an archival, I think, like making of archival back, like behind the scenes making of thing from 2001. That's also about 14 minutes long as well. But I thought hearing the director talk about it and talk about her career and as it relates to this film was rather fascinating. It was rather interesting to hear what she was putting in this film and things like that. Yeah, I definitely want to check out more of her work. Coincidentally, there was a sequel to this movie called Visible Secret 2, which came out in 2002, not directed by Anne Hui, was not really connected to this film at all. It just happens to be another plot where someone is able to see like the dead. Like I was just reading up the plot about it. I didn't watch the movie, but it's kind of similar premise, but not by the same director. But yeah, this is the Radiance release, the limited edition. Comes with a booklet inside as well as the disc, and yeah, I rather enjoyed the film. Definitely a good Halloween watch. Like putting this out in October was a smart idea. Yeah, I think this is the world Blu-ray premiere. That's what it says on the front. So yeah, Visible Secret. Do highly recommend it. I do love the artwork too. I like that green.
Awesome, man. Yeah, back when this was announced, I think I started watching the first 15, 20 minutes of this, and then I think because of the baby, I had to cut it off and I never got to finish it. So that first 15 minutes was awesome. So I got to get back to watching this. But
that first 15 minutes is like the most important part of the movie.
Yeah.
For those of you, I don't want to spoil it for Steven, but there's a secular reasoning why that opening is the way it is. So yeah, it's good. It's rather good. I liked it.
Awesome, man. All right. Well, I guess I'll move on to my pick.
I never saw that, by the way.
You never saw Visible Secrets? Come on now.
To be honest, I never saw it until last night.
I think that film was a discovery for a lot of people when it got out. So
yeah, I think even for like horror fans, there's that whole genre of like Asian horror from like the 2000s that I find myself revisiting now. I mean, Arrow's put out the whole like Ring box set and Grudge box set.
Typically, it's Japanese horror.
Typically Japanese, but I wanted to expand it out to include Chinese cinema as well.
Of course. Apparently, Josephine likes the way you said, "I see dead people."
Yes.
We have to get that on. I'm going to clip that out as a ringtone for people.
Please do.
But all right. So the pick I chose is from a filmmaker that I had heard a lot about over the years, and I actually had owned one of his other prior films, The Pillow Book. It's Peter Greenaway. And the thing is I haven't even watched The Pillow Book either. I've had that one from Indicator for years, so that's going to be a future Unwatched Pile as well. But the one I chose from him is a film called Drowning by Numbers. and this is a Severin film release. It's a 4K. This came out, I think, sometime the beginning of last year, maybe towards the end of the previous year. I don't know, but I've had it for maybe at least a year and a half or so. And so Peter Greenaway directed this. He's a filmmaker who definitely in a tour. He's very much inspired by actual like art, like paintings. He's a very aesthetically gorgeous filmmaker. He's very much a lot of detail put into the image. Everything's chock full of texture and imagery. And with this film, it's centered around three sisters. They're all their names are Sissy. Or they're not sisters, but they're all in the same family. I think one of them's a grandmother, one of them's the daughter, and I think it's a little confusing, to be honest. And I'll say this is a hard movie to watch and get a lot out of on the first watch, because it's kind of a surreal, not surreal, but like not narratively driven film. It's very kind of like things are happening. The best way you can describe the narrative is that you have these three women of different generations, and they're all named as Sissy, and they're obsessed with numbers. They throughout the whole movie, you hear numbers leading up to 100 throughout the whole movie, and they're all three deciding they're going to murder their husbands. And so, yeah, it's really what all that happened. I mean, like it's an odd movie. It's hard to take away a lot from this movie on the first watch, because it's such a kind of just, the acting performances are very deadpan. They're very, everything's just happening and you're just going along with it, but the actors, there are a couple notable actors. Bernard Hill is in this, and Joan Plowright. You got Joey Richardson and Juliet Stevenson. They're all in this film. So notable actors that have been in tons of films over the years. But it's an odd movie. I don't know how I feel completely about it yet. It's, I guess you would categorize it as a dark drama.
Isn't there another movie called Murder by Numbers, or a TV
this
show?
This is called Drowning by Numbers.
My bad.
But
attention.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Drowning by Numbers. Okay.
Yeah, but it's playing off the idea of color by numbers. And I think, I was watching some of the features on it and stuff like that. And I think if I'm taking anything from it, and I guess this was how I was considering my pairing, is that I feel like the film's kind of somewhat dissecting relationships in a way, like that, like how why we love people, like why we love and hate people, and why we and even it contemplates death a little bit in the movie too. I know Peter Greenaway, there's a character in the movie, his name's Smut, and he is the son of the there's the Bernard Hill character plays the mortician that's in the town, and he's kind of pulled into this whole thing because these three women are killing their husbands, and it's like they're all conspiring to do it. And this mortician who keeps coming to the scene he's like, this guy just drowned in 4 feet of water. Like, how does that happen? So he kind of knows that they're all killing their husbands, and he just kind of like is kind of getting drug along because he doesn't want to have to, send them off to jail. And he thinks maybe he can, get with these women. And so he keeps getting pulled along in it. And his son, Smut, is kind of, apparently Peter Greenaway uses Smut's character as a autobiographical character. A lot of the things he goes through in the film, coming of age things, is through the director's, own experience. So his character is weird. Not that he actually did this in real life, but the character, circumcises himself in the movie. It's disturbing. But
not pleasant.
It was not a pleasant scene.
Without spoiling a potential that could be your pairing, Stephen, I just want to say that I just feel like this reminds me of you know, you said it was Jack Nicholson's birthday before the show, Andrew. It reminds me of a Jack Nicholson movie. So I don't want to spoil what potentially could be your pairing. So that's why I don't want to say anything, because that has happened on Unwatched.
Talking about like about Smith maybe or something.
No,
what are you talking
The Witches of Eastwick.
Yeah, it's not my pick, so you don't worry about that. Yeah,
okay.
I can. Yeah.
Doesn't it remind you kind of like the Witches of Eastwick, Andrew, a little bit? With the
Maybe
3 women,
I feel like it could
kill their husbands.
It could perhaps have that similar setting.
Okay.
I mean, it does have, you know, it is starring 3 women and all that. It kind of reminds me of like things like a Steel Magnolias or Fried Green Tomatoes.
Yeah,
films of that era, of that time.
I think that the story is based in folklore a little bit. I think it's supposed to be based on something. I like I said, it's a lot.
Okay.
This movie was a lot to watch on the first. Like sometimes I go into some of these movies and I'm like, this is going to be a tough first watch. The only other one that I've watched on this show that I felt the same way was Southland Tale, where of course I ended up not liking that movie that much. But that movie's got so much crazy shit going on. You're just like, I don't know what to say.
I don't know what's going on in there.
Yeah,
you did a great job on that episode talking about how bad that movie was, because it deserves to be talked bad about, because it's a bad movie, and that bad movies deserve to be talked bad. You hate to say bad things about movies because people put a lot of hard work into their movies. You know what I mean? Yeah. I saw some bad movies at the festival this week. Sure. But I'm not going to talk bad about them because these people put a lot of work into their movies. You know what I mean? Southland Tales, a lot of work was put into that, a lot of cast, but it's still a bad movie. I mean, what are you going to say? You can't not say it's bad.
I mean, it's okay to say a movie's bad as long as you have something to say, you know, to critique it, and you're doing it in a you know, respectful way. But yeah, this film, it's hard for me to really give a nice analysis of it because it's just it's got so much there. Like I said, so much texture, so much levels to it that I haven't even tapped into yet on a first watch.
Is this right for a remake, Steven, in your opinion? Is it like, could this be like a what's your guy, Nosferatu guy?
Robert Eggers?
Would this be like a Robert Eggers remake type of thing?
This movie, honestly, I mean, this is my first Peter Greenaway film, and I don't know if this is how all his films are, but it's a very unique film, and remaking it would not it wouldn't make sense to remake this movie because it's so unique to its own. The plot can be used in any other kind of way you want it to be. It doesn't need to be necessarily a remake to this movie, but like, I mean, honestly, the plot is not so much what drives this movie other than just kind of like, there's definitely something on another level that I'm not fully grasped yet with this film. But all I know is that what I took from it was that definitely had something to say about, you know, who we decide we're going to spend our lives with. You know, kind of talking about relationships a little bit in there, especially women's perspective towards men in this film, where, you know, they're looking for something from their husbands and they're not getting it. So instead of wasting their life, they, you know, decide to kill them.
Right.
You know, so there's something there with that. And there's something there about
that's definitely a theme. You know what I mean? Kind of escaping a tough situation or escaping a situation literally versus figuratively. And Peter Greenaway, that name kept sounding so familiar to me because he directed The Cook, the Thief, His Wife, and Her Lover from 1989, which is a film I think probably everybody knows from him.
Very good film.
Yeah, I've never seen that movie, and it was on Netflix of all places for the longest time.
Oh yeah,
and I was always in my watch list, and I never got to see it. And I think maybe I was waiting for a Blu-ray release, so I was waiting for something like that. And I don't know if it ever happened. It didn't happen here. I could say that it doesn't have a Region A release. It's got a release in the UK. It's got a release in Australia. But yeah, it doesn't have a release here yet. I knew because I saw the DVD on shelves for many years. Like I saw it at Barnes and Noble of all places. Yeah. It was sitting there every time I went to the Criterion sale. But that's the movie I think I know him for the most. You said this was a Seven release. Didn't you say that, Steven?
Yeah. It's
a Seven release from them.
Yeah, every once in a while they come out with something that's a little bit more on the dramatic side. Like you got the Mike Lee film, All or Nothing.
All or Nothing, yeah.
You know,
And they put out Overboard, which no one ever saw
was
that coming.
I think they knew that was kind of a joke, but in a way, they try to justify it. But it's you know, if you got the movie, you might as well put it out.
Yeah, might as well.
But it is a 4K and it looks good. I mean, like for you know, the way I described the film, it's like, why would you do a 4K for that movie? Well, visually, it is a very beautiful movie. Like I said, it's almost like there's certain shots that are like paintings. Like they're very much inspired by real paintings. And
I don't know why I'm getting
you know,
I'm getting a Terrence Malick vibe. Maybe because it's Earth Day, and when I think of the Earth, I think of Terrence Malick. Don't ask me why.
I mean, I wouldn't say I wouldn't say the cinematography is quite as visceral as that. It's more like because when I think of Terrence Malick, it's like he's trying to almost shoot it like it's a documentary, like it's that real.
Oh, he's got to get the magic hour.
You ever watch like Loving Vincent or Steven, where it's completely painted, the whole movie's painted?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
That, yeah.
There's a new one out this year called oh God. Oh man, I can't think of it. It's same people that did Loving Vincent, completely painted, but more of a linear kind of a story. There's an actual story going on.
Yeah.
Is that what you're kind of?
Well, I mean, but this is real life. This is not not an animation. But it's that the set is so, it's like he doesn't leave any dead space. Like there's like fruit on the table. There's bugs in the room. There's haziness in the air. There's just like there's cool. No dead space. There's something in the frame everywhere, and it's just so gorgeous to look at. So like, even for a movie that's kind of on the kind of, you know, dark comedy spectrum, it's still worth a 4K release. It really is. It's a really good looking film. But I can't say much more than them things about what I think the theme is. You know, the drowning by numbers, paint by numbers. I think that correlation has something to do with something to do with how we perceive life sometimes, is that we categorize it, and this is the expectations that society has on life. You know, we paint by numbers. This is the way we do things, and that these women are trying to come outside them lines, color outside them lines. I don't know. That's just my quick one-time thoughts. But let's move on from Drowning by Numbers. Really cool. It's a cool movie. I can't say that I loved it yet because I need to understand it better. But it was definitely worth a watch. But let's move right back around to Dan. Please tell us this. This has been a build-up. We need to know what this period, because Dan had two ideas for what this was going to be, and then he's building it up. So
I'm going to show you two images. All right, I'm going to show you two things in the frame. This was my pick for the longest time, up until about 2.5 to 3 hours ago. I literally had this in mind as soon as when I thought of High and Low. I said, "Oh, I know it's going to be this movie." And then I talked to a friend yesterday, and I said, "Hey, I'm going to pair High and Low with this movie." And they said, "No, you should pair it with this other movie." And then when I watched both movies, again, I had seen them originally in the theater years ago, 15, 20 years ago, whatever they came out. I said, "Oh my God, he's right. I should have paired it with the second movie." The first movie that I was originally going to pair it with was this one. It was called John Q. A Denzel Washington film.
That's not a bad pick.
That's not a bad pick. That's a good one.
In that movie, his son's he needs to get some surgery, I think.
Yeah, it's a heart surgery.
And and then so he like goes into the hospital and he takes it over.
Yeah.
That's a good pick. That's not a bad pick. Yeah.
I know, but this one's better. It's another Denzel Washington movie that when you think about High and Low, you think about the aesthetics and the story of High and Low. Once I watched it again, I said, "Oh yeah," because I hadn't seen it in a while. But it's Man on Fire with Denzel Washington. And I know these guys have got a copy of that.
Steven, do you have that?
I do, but I'm not running to get that movie.
I don't own that movie. Never have.
Wow. I know I have a copy of it. I had to redo some of my shelves and stuff, and I moved a lot of my stuff around, and I ended up moving some of I went to look at my M's, and I couldn't find it in my M's. But it's basically Denzel Washington plays the CIA agent named John Creasy, who was, working in Mexico, and he gets offered a job in, I believe, Rome, Italy, to keep an eye on this little girl played by, I believe it's Dakota Fanning. Dakota Fanning, but she's real little. She's an adult now, but she was little at the time. And he's kind of watching her, keeping an eye on her, getting to know her family. Father's played by Mark Anthony, but he has like kind of an agent guy that kind of oversees him, and he's played by Christopher Walken. But eventually she gets kidnapped and he gets shot trying to save her. So the whole second half of the movie is him trying to find her, get revenge for the guys that are kidnapping her. And this is Tony Scott, who we all R.I.P. Tony Scott, rest in peace. Wow, what an aesthetic in Man on Fire. What the way he films this movie is just amazing. It's you talk about filling up the screen, Stephen, with images and just everything.
A lot of slow motion, but I mean,
a lot of a little bit of stop motion, a little like that.
Not stop motion, but slow motion.
Like,
slow motion, yeah. And just explosions, some fighting, and stuff like that. And I think that the pairing is more suited because of the kidnapping of the child. The child in High and Low was kidnapped, and there was a ransom. And here the child is, and they're actually talking about a ransom, but he's like, nah, I ain't messing around with any ransom. I'm gonna go find this kid and get her back, because he was trying to help her with her swimming. She wants to be a swimmer, and he's teaching her a little bit about timing when it comes to jumping off the blocks. Very good movie. Denzel Washington this is when Denzel has really hasn't had a lot of bad movies in his career, but he was literally on fire during this part of his career. Everything he did was amazing and amazing and amazing and amazing. And it didn't matter if he was working with Tony Scott or Spike Lee or whoever the hell he was working with. He was getting great roles, getting great films, and he developed who we all know him for now, as an actor, one of the greats of all time. I mean, literally, I would say Denzel Washington. People want to argue, it's 2004 it came out. I think Denzel Washington is one of the greatest actors of all time. I put him in my top 10 of greatest actors of all time. And this is one of those movies where you say, you can't not have this in your Denzel Washington top 10, Man on Fire. But it really pairs nicely with High and Low. So that's why I changed it from John Q to, I think it's a little bit better of a pairing than John Q.
This is my thoughts on it. Okay, so without getting too deep, and I'll see how Andrew thinks, if he's thinking the same way. I think they're both really good picks. I think what I like about,
go ahead.
I think John Q, if you're going with a more straight up, what fits the moral center of what High and Low is, where it's this really hard moral quandary that we're in the middle of, where he's got to do what he has to do to save his son, and it's a stance of morals, but what he's doing is bad.
Yeah,
but sometimes when I do my pairings, I like things to kind of be the same, but almost a contrast. And I think that Man on Fire, what it does in a way that is, what's similar is obviously like the kidnapping part, but what's different here is that the person that's supposed to be like the protector, like the driver who gets his son taken in High and Low, is the person protecting the kid in this movie. And then he's the one that has to save her. And then I don't want to give away the whole plot, but there is a very similar thing of like business dealing going on with the father. And this is part of the reason why this happens in the first place, which is very similar to what happens in High and Low, where he's doing a business deal. So yeah, there are very good similarities. It works really well. And there's a little bit they both are good picks. I probably would have leaned on John Q because it's a lesser known film, probably. And I'm more one that's going to pick a film that's lesser talked about. And I like that movie is very self-contained, and so is High and Low for a large majority of it. So it fits in layers too. They're both good picks.
And
yeah.
before you go, Andrew, there's an irony to this. So a news article came out not very long ago that Denzel Washington and Spike Lee are going to remake High and Low. And so I thought, oh man, what an interesting deal. I'll watch High and Low, and then I'll get a Denzel Washington movie that fits into that same vibe as High and Low, and it's directed by Spike Lee. Then I realized it was Nick Cassavetes that directed it, John Q, the whole time. It wasn't Spike Lee. So I kind of screwed that up.
It would have been perfect if you could have done that, but no, it's
I thought it was the whole time until today. I thought it was Spike Lee that directed John Q and not Nick Cassavetes. But it's still full circle because Spike Lee and Denzel Washington are going to make a remake of.
If you could have figured out some way to make Inside Man fit with, no. But that's a good pick, Dan. Andrew, any little couple?
Ironically, that was what I was going to say. Is that currently, as of right now, they're remaking High and Low, Spike Lee with Denzel Washington in the Toshiro Mifune role. I think they're shooting in New York right now because I think I've seen pictures from the set recently, as of like last week or so, or maybe the week before. I don't know. Time just kind of runs into one another. But I agree with what Steven said. I think they both work, but John Q does have that. It's interesting that John Q kind of is a lot closer to High and Low than I actually thought it was until I just realized that.
Why do you think it was my original thought? But now you guys are making me realize.
I'm not saying no. They're both good picks. I just think that for me personally, I would go John Q just because it's a lesser known movie and it is more self-contained.
And also it fits closer. A Man on Fire is interesting because there is the morality in that film, but the morality kind of gets thrown out the window once
he starts killing everybody.
Yeah, once Dakota Fanning gets taken. Not to mention Taken because it's a very similar plot, but once she gets captured in that film, the morality kind of gets thrown out the window.
Yeah, if
Denzel goes off.
If Toshiro Mifune would have started like going after, all the going after the killer in the movie himself, then it would be exactly the same movie, but it's not.
Yeah, imagine Toshiro Mifune as Liam Neeson in Taken, but
find you.
But he's like a samurai or something.
Yeah, and then he goes out and like
or he's like,
it'd have been amazing.
Combined with like ninja assassin.
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm just thinking of Toshiro Mifune as a ninja or something. A ninja / samurai. Should have made that movie when we had the chance.
Well, it's fine. That's fine. But yeah,
let's move on to
yours.
My pick, which is I was struggling a little bit initially. My initial thing was to go straight for Sixth Sense because the direct, I can see dead people, all that kind of stuff. But I mentioned it earlier. But another movie I'm going to mention.
You're gonna pair it with Ghost Dad.
No. There's been a lot
of Cosby Ghost Dad.
There's been a lot more movies about ghosts than I thought about. Now that I'm thinking about it, I should have gone with another one, but I'm going to go with this for what I have in my hand, and that is It Follows, the film that came out in 2014, the horror film. They're working on a sequel to this now. Yeah. For those of you who don't know the premise of this movie or didn't see this in the movie in 2014, Steven, how would you? I haven't seen it since then, actually.
Okay. Well. So essentially, there's
these group of kids, or there's this one kid. It was one girl who has she has like a one-night stand with this guy, and then all of a sudden, this entity starts following her around. And no matter where she goes or what she does, it's kind of always there, like lurking in the background.
Kind of Freddy Krueger-esque.
Although it doesn't talk to you, it doesn't taunt you, it doesn't crack jokes. It just wants to follow you and basically kill you. That's kind of it, which is kind of what Freddy does. But he likes to make you laugh about it, I guess, for the most part. So what you kind of learning is that there's this curse or this demonic thing or this presence that is passed to people through sex. So you have sex with someone, you pass it on. This movie's kind of probably the best anti-sex movie of all time. You know what I mean?
The best marriage movie.
The Catholic Church must have loved this movie because they're not about having sex for pleasure
right now.
And it's like so that movie is about these kids basically trying to survive against this entity that's chasing them, which is kind of a trope that's in a lot of horror films. I mean, I watched a horror film last night where these people were trapped in a house and something was trying to get them. It's kind of like that, except these people are on the move. Like they're moving place to place, trying to figure out what's going on for the most part. And yeah, this is directed by what's his name? David Robert Mitchell.
I was gonna say a 3-name guy.
Yes, a 3-name guy, David Robert Mitchell, who directed, I believe, most recently Under the Silver Lake, the movie with Andrew Garfield. I think he directed that, and I think that's kind of most of what he's directed was like It Follows and Under the Silver Lake in 2018.
Now he's working on the sequel.
And this movie, I believe, stars I want to see a good young cast. Micah Monroe is in the film, and she's kind of become kind of not a scream queen. I don't think they like those names anymore. But like a final girl. She was in The Guest. She was in The Fifth Wave. She was in Independence Day Resurgence, which is a film I don't think many people remember because of how bad it is. But she's in a lot of like horror films and stuff.
Regurgence.
Yeah.
Regurgence, yeah.
She's in a lot of those. So she was in that movie Greta from a few years ago, which I thought was pretty good. But yeah, so this movie kind of fits along with what's going on in Visible Secret in the sense that you can, due to some type of circumstance, you can see something that other people can't see, and it's interacting with you in a negative way. In this case, literally. In Visible Secret, there's something going on in there where sometimes they interact with you in a negative way, like they're trying to, these vengeful, angry spirits or these ghosts are trying to get you and harm you, or they're trying to actually maybe live out some type of thing in their life. And then sometimes you can kind of get rid of them by kind of like settling the spirits and stuff, but that's a whole different story. This film is a lot more simpler than that. This thing is just trying to get you. What's great about this movie, what I remember from this movie, I haven't seen it in very many years, the atmosphere and the constant fear of dread that this thing can show up at any moment in any form and get you. That's frightening. Like, that's really, really a frightening concept that no matter where you go, what you do, it'll get you. It's definitely a movie that's dealing with this existential dread, existential nightmares that have manifested themselves. Yeah, an interesting film with a rather creepy ending as well.
When did it come out, Andrew, again?
2014.
2014. And
10 years ago.
But I'm telling you, this is right at the beginning or a little bit like in the first 2 or 3 years of the horror resurgence. And it was films like this that really brought the horror genre back. And I've talked about this with Steven and a lot of other people. These are the kind of films we need more of in the horror genre.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, it was at that time where we were, Stephen, people hate that, the elevated horror. People hate that moniker, especially horror fans, horror directors, producers, they all hate that idea as well. For the lack of a better term, I guess it's kind of what that resurgence that Dan was talking about was kind of about. Oh, you were getting kind of these indie horrors that were really good, but they were different. They were taking some old tropes and working them in a way that was different yet still appealing and still worked. Like
I felt like they were taking, like the narratives were very much like old school narratives, but they're bringing more of a psychological edge to, like, there was more of a psychological themes, like something like the Babadook had a lot more psychological themes, and this one's got more psychological themes. Things like Hereditary had psychological themes.
Yeah,
Family.
I'm thinking of The Witch. I'm thinking of Robert Eggers' work and stuff. Yeah. Ironically, that's kind of around the time.
Renaissance. The horror like the reconnaissance and the horror renaissance were going on at the same time.
Ironically, this was
unfortunately McConaughey didn't last.
This was he won an Oscar. He won an Oscar, so I guess
then it was over.
Yeah, that's all you need.
About what, 3 or 4 years? It was good though.
But what is interesting is this was around the time I think that A24 was starting to get going. Was that mid 2010s area? If you go back and look at their output, now they're more of a household name, but at the time they were relatively small. I want to say, no, this is an Anchor Bay release. This wasn't released by A24, but it has that range to it. I know this has since been put out in a much more deluxe edition from Second Sight, which came out late last year. Steven has it. Internally jealous.
I could get up and get it, but I'm not going to.
Steven doesn't want to move today.
I'm not moving.
I was thinking of this, and I was thinking of Green Room often because those both came out coincidentally around the same time in theaters, and the release from Second Sight came out. A few months, like right next to each other, late last year. So yeah, it follows, kind of pairs rather well. There's a lot of other ghost type of movies that I think pair well with Visible Secret, but this one I think pairs pretty closely.
Yeah, I haven't seen Visible. Obviously, haven't seen that yet. But based off of what you're saying, I think that sounds like a good pairing. And I love It Follows. It Follows is a solid horror film.
Yeah. I just, right. It's one of those ones that when you see it, you say, wow, what a simple concept, yet so effective, and so it creates so much dread and so many jump scares and so much, like, it's like parents should sit their kids down and watch it.
I would not want to watch this movie with my parents. And I'm in
my
late 30s.
I'm gonna sit my daughter down at like age 13 or 14 and watch this movie with her and be like, don't you have sex with any boys?
Consequences have actions. That's kind of the moral of the story.
We need to have that whole situation filmed, like have a camera in the background filming it.
We'll see.
Nobody knows what's going on, and do we get to see what's going on?
For a movie with this premise that with this type of premise, I'm curious what the sequel is going to be. I'm very curious how they're going to continue the story. I believe Michael Monroe is coming back from it, so I don't know if it's going to be a direct continuation, because it's a premise kind of like Final Destination, where there's no real solution to it, perhaps.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine like a coach at a school going to the principal, hey, I want to show my kids a movie to show them sex. They shouldn't have sex.
Abstinence, and it follows. When I was in high school, we had a class called Real History, where we watched movies that were based on history, and they showed us Braveheart with no permission slip, and we were all not 18 yet, and there's stuff in there probably we shouldn't have been watching.
Oh yeah, there was a lot of blood and guts and cursing, I think.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, I know. We were fine.
Kids need to see that stuff.
Yeah, this was the mid 2000s. I guess nobody cared.
No. But all right, cool stuff. All right, so when it came to me choosing what I like, the first thing that like stuck out to me, because I was still kind of dealing with figuring out what themes would work well to translate to a pairing. But the first thing that stood out to me was the acting in this film. That really kind of gave me an idea what film I was gonna pick, because the way the acting was in this film was very, like I said, like dark humor, deadpan, and the director came to me right away. Yorgos Lanthimos.
Oh.
And when I started thinking about themes that were similar, themes of dealing with relationships and dealing with finding somebody to be with, or being something of that ilk, I said I have to go with The Lobster as a pairing for this movie. The acting has got a very similar way, and I would say Drowning by Numbers is a little sillier, like it's a little more playful, but a lot of times there's a lot of a matter of fact way of how people talk in that movie, and of course with The Lobster and all of Yorgos Lanthimos films, they all have that similar delivery, that deadpan delivery, just saying what they're thinking, kind of no filter. And in this film, you have Colin Farrell, who's going to this facility where he's trying to find himself a partner. They're in this like kind of dystopian future, I guess you could call it dystopian, because of how things are structured now, where if you don't, you have to be in a relationship with somebody, or you basically you can't be in society. It's part of what you have to be in this film. So he goes to this facility where you have 45 days to meet a partner within this place, and if you don't, you get turned into an animal, which means probably that you get killed. You don't ever really know, because they don't ever really show it. But so he goes there, and it's they break it down, ask him questions, and then he's supposed to set out and find a partner while he's at this place. And you know, this film is very much a deconstruction of how we, you know, we perceive ourselves and how we perceive getting into relationships with people in society. You know, you have people that are very much, you know, codependent people. There's people that are kind of, you know, symbolism for that in the film. There's people like you have John C. Reilly in the film who's very much okay with being alone, but in this society, it tells him that you need to be in a relationship. You have to be in one, or you're not normal, you know. And, you know, then you got the other actor in the film, trying to remember his name. Damn.
John C. Reilly in that?
Yeah, that's what I just said.
Oh, I mean Amy Adams.
No,
Amy Adams.
Rose Byrne.
Rachel Weisz is in that.
What movie are you talking about?
Yeah,
You're talking about some other movie.
No, Rachel Weisz. He's right. Rachel Weisz, not Rose Byrne.
Well, she's in the movie, but I'm thinking of the other male character. Damn.
There's a lot in. Also, IMDb.
Ben Whishaw.
Ben Whishaw. Okay.
Yeah. So his character very much decides that he's gonna kind of fake it, settle into the normalities, just to get a partner so that he can live a life. And that's what some people in today's world, they'll just settle into something just because that's what people think you should do, and not do it because you actually fall in love with somebody or you actually like the person you're with. They do it, you know. So this movie very much, you know, is about relationships and deconstructing how different ways society perceives and kind of influences people, you know, into what kind of relationships they get into. And I feel like that kind of connects to Drowning by Numbers in a way, and at least in the way that is centered around the three women, where they're both dealing with their, you know, failed relationships in a very, of course, brutal way. But in this film, it's kind of stepping back from that and deconstructing that before we get to the marriage part. So, and of course, like I said, the stylized wise. Now, when we're talking about visuals here, definitely two different type of movies. One, you know, Drowning by Numbers has a lot of colors. It's very, you know, it's a very beautiful looking movie. And The Lobster is a very drab looking movie. It's very, you know, grays and dark greens, and it's kind of an ugly looking movie. Very clinical looking.
It's an experiment on relationships, The Lobster is. And so your other movie was three women that wanted to kill their husbands. And now this is whether you have to figure out who your persons you want to be with, or you're going to turn into an animal. We see somebody get turned into a dog in the movie, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. The brother, Colin Farrell's brother, is apparently his dog that he gets to bring with him to the place. And then, I don't want to give away all this stuff, but
no, but because if you don't get with somebody pretty quickly, you do get turned into, and they say, why a lobster?
Well, that's what they say. You know, it's not like there's some mystical element to this movie. Like we don't see mystical things happen.
Yeah. And that's definitely part of what you're saying, Stephen, the metaphor or the themes that are in the movie. Yeah. They tell you one thing, but in actuality, it's probably not that. Yeah. Like you don't get turned into an animal. They just, like you said, Stephen, they probably get rid of you. You know what I mean? And in a way, kind of exploring the falsity of society, the falsity of tradition, or the falsity of, like, you know, we're told certain things in life and in society, when in actuality it's the complete opposite, or it's not what they tell you. There's falsities and lies and things like that all throughout life. And The Favorite is kind of probably commenting on that, and also commenting on the idea of, like,
you mean lobster?
There's this literal agency of upholding traditionalism of monogamy, of two people, you know, having to be together, the codependency. You know what I mean? I believe it's also, like, traditionally structured as one man and one woman. I'm pretty sure, at least I remember.
Well, there's a scene in the movie when he's first brought in where they ask him, what do you want your sexual orientation to be? And he's like, well, I would say I want to be with men, but there was this one time in college where I was with a man, like,
So
and then he was
they
like,
are open to that.
but then the clinic said, well, we don't have the bisexual option open
Oh.
anymore
Oh,
because
okay.
of it was a conflict. Something happened, so
Okay,
we
so
took
I
that
was
away,
kind of right with them kind of neglecting.
neglecting the fact that it can be
It
more than
can,
just
yeah,
Yeah.
there can be women can be with women, men can be with men.
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't. They don't even include any of the other type of
They didn't
sexual
necessarily
things.
say they didn't necessarily say you couldn't be gay, but
Right,
that you couldn't do both.
right. So
So
they kind of threw bisexuality out of the window.
yeah.
So they again is probably commenting on formal structure or what is perceived as formal traditional societal norms. The Lobster is a great film. Yorgos
Yeah.
Lanthimos makes very good, challenging films, as we saw with Poor Things this past year.
They got another
Yeah,
one coming up this summer, and I'm
yes,
hearing
he
interesting
does.
things about it.
Initially, when you
Kinds of kindness,
yes, with also with Emma Stone, I believe.
Yeah.
and a lot of
That's
other
his
people.
muse. I mean, that's
Yeah, and a lot of other
yeah.
people. I mean, that kind of happens once you get like super well known. Everybody wants to work with you, I guess.
Well,
Um,
I mean, funny enough, part of what influenced me as well. I mean, it was one of the things that kind of like confirmed my thoughts was that I'd already thought about The Lobster, and then I started watching some special features from the disc, and there was brought up about how Yorgos, I mean, not from the disc, but from YouTube. I was looking at some stuff on YouTube, and Yorgos talked about how he really loved. I believe it was one of the other films from Peter Greenaway. I can't remember which one it was, but he was a fan of Peter Greenaway, and so that's where I was like, wow, they do have very similar. It was confirmed there that my thoughts were like, oh, they obviously he inspired him. Yorgos is inspired by Peter Greenaway in some way, and I think it was him talking about The Favorite. He's like, The Favorite
yeah.
Was very much an inspiration. Let me look it up real quick because it's once I saw which film he was talking about, I was like, well, that's why. Because
is there any fisheye lens in your movie, your first one?
no,
No.
there's no that kind of visual flair is not in
okay.
in Peter
Coincidence.
Greenaway's films. His are kind of more
Yeah.
flatly
What is
shot.
interesting is that when you mentioned Yorgos Lanthimos, I initially thought you were going to say The Favorite because I was thinking of the three women leading that film and the three women leading Drowning by Numbers as well. So I was going in that direction, but it's interesting you went with The Lobster.
Well, it's the one. To be honest, it's one that I prefer. I know everybody likes The Favorite. I like it fine, but it's not. I like The Lobster way more, and I just connected more with the relationship aspect of it. But the movie that Yorgos was influenced by Peter Greenaway is a movie he did called The Daughterman's Contract. And that's a film that's kind of set in the same time period as The Favorite. And so he obviously is a fan of Peter Greenaway, and I think that deadpan style maybe is something he was influenced by as well. That's why he uses it in all his films. And of course, what I know about Peter Greenaway is a lot of his films have a perverse element to them. They talk a lot about sex in this film, Drowning by Numbers. There's sex in it. There's nudity. It's something he does not shy away from.
Yeah,
and of course
doesn't shy.
He doesn't shy away from it. So I mean, I know that I haven't watched it yet, but I know that the Pello book has got full frontal Ewan McGregor nudity in it. So it's like that movie is like, he's not afraid to to do nudity in his films. Yorgos is obviously, especially with, Poor Things this year, he obviously he just went all full throttle in that movie. So, but I thought that this was a great kind of weird pairing. I would definitely probably watch. I go back and forth. I feel like The Lobster would maybe be a good opener, but it actually, I think, broadens the idea of talking about relationships more. So maybe, Drowning by Numbers first and then Lobster second. It's a downer of a movie, but I mean, it's still good. I really love it. So, but that is my pairing. And that is it for this installment of the Unwatched Pile. Dan, thanks for joining us again, man.
Hey, no problem, man. I you know what? What I liked is that when I showed you John Q, you guys, no, that would have been a great pairing. So in a way, I got both of my potential pairings, John Q and Man on Fire in there. Now people say, oh, 2 Denzel Washington movies.
Hey, you can do a triple feature. It's triple
feature now. And when High and Low comes out from Denzel and Spike Lee, you go see that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's a good set that you spend the few days leading up to the release watching the movies and getting yourself all prepared. But yeah, thank you, Dan, once again, of course, for joining us. We'll have you back, of course, on at some point soon. Andrew, of course, I always like seeing you.
Oh, thank you.
Obviously, I've done this with you so many times. If I,
indeed.
I got sick of each other yet. I mean,
very true. We will, speaking of which, when we will be meeting again, which will be this coming Monday for another episode of Chasing Labels. And of course, we will have another episode next month of the Unwatched Pile. So yeah, we got things.
And probably next month sometime, you'll see the last part of Movies Down Memory Lane, which we do with Dan here. Our third part with Jim Carrey, which will be on his dramas. So look out for that. That'll be sometime next month. But yeah, thanks everybody for joining us for this newest installment of the Unwatched Pile. And have a good night. And what are you doing here, man? Just bye. See ya.
Watch the movies.
Watch the movies. See all the piles in the back? Look at your own piles. Watch some stuff. Bye.